Hello, my name is Mordorim and today I'm going to take a look at Asterigos, Curse of the Stars, a Soulslike with Disney-style graphics inspired by Greek and Roman mythologies. This gorgeous looking title is the first game developed by Acme Gamestudios, located in Taiwan, and they seem to enter the fray with one real banger. Great visuals, a good OST, decent sound design and voice acting, smooth controls, satisfying combat and a decent progression make this one a highlight for me. It's truly one of the better titles I played this year. But sadly this game is not without flaws. Specifically the enemy AI, animations during cutscenes and dialogue, and railroaded level design make it less fun. Not a deal breaker by any means, but it did take away from the experience. I will try to keep spoilers at a minimum, but there will be some light ones in this video to highlight some things like combat, dialogue, animations and more. I will also only show gameplay and zones up until we get the teleport. Also make sure to leave a like and sub. First, a few things you need to know. The game is a Soulslike, but it's not nearly as punishing as one. You have way more healing options and the game is very generous with replenishing your supplies. Now speaking of difficulty, you can choose between easy, normal and hard. For those Souls veterans among you, I would highly advise going with hard. Now let's start with the game's premise and storytelling. You play as Hilda, a young warrior from the Northwind Legion, tasked with finding Harold, your father and commander of a small warrior troop, looking for a way to lift the curse from their king. This leads you into the lost city of Athos, where you start to encounter strange monsters, discover the truth about the calamity that struck this kingdom and ultimately get hired by some purple woman trying to get the most out of your existence. But that's not all. This also happened to your dad, just with a purple dude instead. So you venture into the different parts of the city in order to complete your mission. Each zone you visit has their own arc and story, which is told through NPCs, notes and echoes. You can also knock on doors and talk to residents or eavesdrop on soldiers. And all that can also be skipped. You're never forced to watch or read something. Talking to NPCs for exposition, thoughts on NPCs or side quests are never shoehorned on you. And that's a good thing, because only the main and some important side quests are voice acted. Everything else you have to read, and there is a lot of stuff to read through. The quality of it varies, but I never found myself hating it. I even stopped and clicked through 15 minutes of additional dialogue just to get the whole picture. Overall, a great experience. Right, so I already mentioned it. Only some parts of the game are voice acted. This, however, is not a bad thing. The most important bits are signified this way, and those that do not want to be flooded with additional information can safely skip stuff. The quality of everything is also much higher than I would have expected at that price point. Just $35. Sure, the animations are just emotes and nothing is lip synced, but it didn't bother me all that much. One great example of this is the banter between Hilda and the criminal she knows very well.
My boss, Old Whitebrow, believes that the way to remove the curse is in the mine. We've made a lot of new discoveries here.
Alright, let's just say that I believe your lies for just a second. You're still a criminal in the eyes of the law. I can't ignore that.
I personally felt like I was watching a Disney movie and got really into the narrative. Really not that bad for their first game. The budget was well spent. But they did drop the ball on adjusting the volume. Some NPCs stand far away from you and are barely audible. And it's not even just a problem with voice acting. Let's talk about OST and sound design. The music ranges from great to decent and never felt out of place. I did, however, feel like the quality wasn't the best at times. Some pieces were just much louder than others. A great example of this is an NPC you can talk to after a certain point in the story. She can play songs in the hub area for you, but those were awkwardly quiet despite being some of the better pieces in the game. This is not just a problem with songs. Sounds in general can be very loud without any reason. This fountain, for example, destroyed my eardrums. It's not that common, but it's worth mentioning because it did bother me quite a bit. As for good examples, listen to the Forge. The music, background noise and scribbling on paper all come together to bless your ears. Combat sounds are also meaty and impactful, especially magic. Summoning those fireballs into a meteor to slingshot your foe into a random direction just felt great. And this brings me to combat. It's on the slower side, but impactful. You have 6 weapons to choose from: a sword and board, hammer, magic staff, magic knuckles, dagger and a spear. Each weapon also has a weapon mark, for example a block with the shield, a better dodge with daggers, or a parry with the spear. You can even change the element of a weapon to further provide us with more depth. Most weapons just change the damage type, but the magic staff was unique in that it changed its whole moveset. In my playthrough I mostly focused on the staff and spear, but all weapons felt great. It was really hard to just pick 2. Each weapon felt unique and offered me engaging and fun moves to beat enemies into oblivion. The innate skills further emphasized this by enabling different playstyles. But that's not all. You can equip up to 4 additional weapon skills that cost mana. This enhances combat even more, giving you additional options to outmaneuver your foes. Building around them can be fun, but I felt very restricted when trying to use them. Mana was a real issue. I have to admit, I didn't exactly build into them either. A build focused around them might feel much better. Now there is another problem standing in your way: the enemy AI. It's buggy. Most enemies do not seem to notice you despite hitting them with a ray of fire. Killing their companion also doesn't seem like a big deal to them. Foes get regularly stuck on things and glitch out, or just stand there without moving at all. Now the actual enemy design is interesting. The movesets are good and fun to deal with, but they just don't seem to work half the time. This is a major issue throughout the whole game. I seriously hope they will address this with a patch at launch or soon after. Now, why is this not a deal breaker for me? Because the combat is really fun despite the AI bugging out. I also never encountered this problem when fighting bosses. They are well designed, unique looking and have interesting kits that can be quite deadly if you choose to ignore the mechanics. So, combat is fun. What about progression? Killing enemies rewards you with experience, currency, materials for upgrading gear and crafting trinkets. Leveling up rewards you with attribute and talent points. Those can also be acquired through special flasks found throughout each zone. Attributes are split into more damage, more health and better mana management for your skills. It might seem a bit shallow, but is enough to differentiate builds from each other. Pumping damage will make you use less skills, but getting more health will also skip on damage and mana regen. Speaking of skills, each weapon has their own tree with passives, perks and skills. The passives enhance your regular moveset. They make your innate skill better, give you new moves or decrease your stamina consumption. Perks change aspects of your moves. For example, giving your spear counter a sweeping strike instead of a piercing attack. They can be turned off and on in a special menu whenever you want. Picking a skill is just that. You can equip 4 matched to your weapon type or any of the universal skills. Each weapon also has a stand skill. Activating costs mana and gives you a powerful basic moveset. It also drains your mana like crazy as long as it's active, which prevents you from using other skills. I felt restricted to not using other moves because I spent 4 levels worth of talents on it. Personally, I didn't like the implementation of the stand system. Sure, I could have respec'd my build, but it costs 1 respec flask, which is limited early on. Now, attributes and talents are not the only way to get stronger. You can upgrade your weapons and elemental stones with materials you find, with each level giving you a considerable boost in power. Something to keep in mind is the scarcity of certain higher tier materials and currency early on. I never had any surplus, which limited me to just my main weapons. You also have trinkets. Those can be found in chests, gained through quests or crafted yourself. The smith in this game allows you to supply her with blueprints, which enable you to craft more. Crafting a trinket permanently unlocks it, and you can equip them in up to 4 slots. They provide you with boni like more XP, more carry capacity for consumables or better defenses. Some also give you penalties like no XP or hefty penalties to your resistances. They're quite impactful and a fun way to combine armor and utility in one slot. Now the last topic I want to talk about is environmental design and side objectives. The game's world is interconnected. Each zone has multiple ways to go back to checkpoints and it feels like a real city. This can range from a simple door back to the main hub or an elevator in a mine. The level design in itself is good and unlocking shortcuts feels great and believable. Zones also look fantastic and unique, and they feature special problems you have to work around, be it traps, ballista firing at you, or a gigantic bird throwing feathers at you. Exploration is a strong point here, and hidden treasures, small puzzles and side quests await you to be found. The rewards can range from additional skill points and trinkets to just upgrade materials. I personally always felt like it was worth it to explore. Also, there are mimics in the game. Now to some critique. There is a lot of dead ends. I also felt like I was on rails the whole time. The arsenal area looked like a fun place to explore, but I mostly ran along a predetermined path to the zone's boss. This doesn't mean there are no optional buildings, bosses and enemies. Plentiful, just that there are no alternate paths through levels. Anyway, let's wrap up the video. As for pros, the game has a great setting. The zones are interesting and reward exploration. The story is decent and unique. The game features a lot of lore. You can find a lot of collectible nodes. You have 6 weapons with unique playstyles and skill trees. The controls are smooth and the combat is satisfying. The character progression is quite decent. The game features great graphics and lighting. The OST and sound design is decent. The game features cool monster designs and bosses with a decent variety. You can start a new game plus. Asterigos features multiple difficulties. And the game also has a chatty main character. I personally like this, but I know some that didn't. As for cons, the game has a bugged or just really bad AI. Zones have rather railroady level design with no alternate paths to the zone's objective. The audio quality and levels are not consistent at all. Only the main quest and important side quests are voice acted with no lip sync. Character animations are done through emotes except combat. And like I said, some might not like the chatty main character. Asterigos Curse of the Stars is a unique Souls-like experience with a great choice for a setting. The Greek and Roman aesthetic gives everything a fresh paint and lets us explore a high fantasy world brimming with magic. The OST, charming dialogue, combat and story all kept me immersed in the game, despite its flaws in level design, inconsistent audio and faulty AI. Ultimately, I would recommend this game, especially at the price point of just 35 bucks. Anyway, I hope you liked the video and I will be back with some content for the game. Don't forget to like, sub and comment. See you next time and bye.